A concentration camp in Germany, April 1945. A freed prisoner drags a former guard by the hair as American soldiers watch. Justice came swiftly after liberation for those who caused so much suffering. Stutthof Camp, 1943. Nazi guard Jenny Wanda Barkman stands before a massive pile of victims' shoes. Known as the Beautiful Spectre, she faced the ultimate consequence for war crimes in 1946 at age 24. Amsterdam, before deportation. 4-year-old Frederica Borstrock, born September 25, 1938. She was sent from Westerbork transit camp to Auschwitz in February 1943 and did not survive. One of over 1 million children lost. Warsaw Ghetto, Poland, 1941. Young barefoot Jewish boys sit together on a street. The ghetto held over 400,000 people in an area of just 1.3 square miles before the deportations began. A homeless man in the Warsaw Ghetto, 1941. German-occupied Poland forced Jews into sealed districts where starvation and disease claimed thousands before the camps. A Nazi program home, 1940s. A nurse watches over children in this facility designed to create what the regime called a pure population. These homes operated across occupied Europe. A town in France, August 1944. 23-year-old Simone sits with her mother and baby daughter after their heads were shaven. Her relationship with a German soldier led to public punishment during the post-liberation purge. Adolf Hitler poses with children shortly before invading Poland. Within a year of this photo, the Second World War began, leading to the loss of millions of lives across 6 years. Yugoslavia, 1926. 3 defendants in leg shackles during a controversial trial that shocked the nation. Their formal clothing contrasts with the heavy chains, showing how suspects were treated in the 1920s justice system. Burma, 1945. A British officer questions a young woman rescued from Japanese forces. Allied troops documented testimonies from survivors to gather evidence about what happened to civilians during the occupation. Palestinian families leave their homes during the Nakba, 1948. The word means catastrophe in Arabic, marking the displacement of over 700,000 Palestinians during this period. An apartment fire escape suddenly collapsed. The mother cushioned the fall for her young child, who survived. She did not. This photo shows the moment just before the structure gave way. London, 1940. A girl sits in the ruins of her bombed-out home, still holding her doll. The Blitz took over 40,000 British civilian lives and destroyed more than 1 million houses. A British couple sleeps inside a Morrison shelter during the London Blitz, March 1941. Named after Home Secretary Herbert Morrison, these steel cages served as dining tables by day and protective beds at night. A railway station in Berlin, 1945. Refugees and displaced civilians gather at the bomb-damaged terminal. Desperate families wait with their belongings, hoping to escape as Allied forces advance through the city. A German mother holds a poster of her son missing since World War II. An estimated 1.3 million German soldiers were never accounted for after the war ended. Queen Mary at Greenock, Scotland, September 1944. Wounded American soldiers rest in makeshift hospital bunks aboard the luxury liner. The ship's former ballroom was converted into a medical ward to transport over 800,000 troops during the war. Operation Goodwood, near Caen, France, July 18, 1944. A young German soldier surrenders to British forces with arms raised and bandaged wrist. He was one of 300 prisoners taken on the first day of Britain's largest armored offensive in Normandy. Just a quick reminder, if you appreciate this journey through history, consider subscribing to support more videos like this. A town in Germany, May 1945. German soldiers hand over weapons to U.S. forces after crossing the damaged Elbe River Bridge. Over 100,000 Germans fled westward in the war's final days, preferring American captivity to Soviet imprisonment. Near Landeck, Austria, May 6, 1945. German troops surrender their rifles. The war in Europe officially ended 2 days later, on May 8th. A town in Italy, April 29th to 30th, 1945. German soldiers of the 148th Infantry Division travel by horse-drawn cart to surrender to Brazilian Expeditionary Force troops. General Otto formally gave up the entire division to the Brazilian commander. An army private breaks the news of the war's end in Europe to other soldiers after receiving an Associated Press flash. Victory in Europe Day, May 8, 1945, brought celebrations across Allied nations. Southern Italy, September 1943. British artillerymen of the 506th Battery load ammunition into their Bishop self-propelled gun. These Valentine tank-based artillery pieces proved crucial during the Italian campaign. Near Albert, France, 1918, a message-carrying pigeon is released from a porthole in a British Mark Fame tank during World War I. Glasgow, Scotland, around 1916. Female munitions workers pose at their factory. Women filled roles traditionally held by men during World War I, working in dangerous conditions to supply the front lines. Moscow, June 22, 1941. Citizens gather to hear the announcement of Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa began that morning with over 3 million troops, the largest invasion force in history. Winter War. A Finnish general questions a camouflaged Soviet prisoner of war who was just captured. Finland fought the Soviet Union from November 1939 to March 1940 in temperatures dropping below -40 degrees. A German soldier mocks a Lenin statue, 1942. This photo was taken during Operation Barbarossa as German forces pushed deep into Soviet territory before being pushed back. A Jewish parachutist sits between two Yugoslav partisans, 1944. Jewish volunteers from Palestine drop behind enemy lines to assist resistance fighters and rescue Allied prisoners throughout occupied Europe. Warsaw, Poland, August 1944. A Polish soldier poses with his wife and daughter just before the Warsaw Uprising. The planned 5-day rebellion lasted 63 days and resulted in the city's near-total destruction. Palestine, around 1942. Australian soldiers show their Bren machine gun to children from a Jewish settlement. Allied forces maintained a presence in the Middle East throughout the war to protect strategic interests. A village in Italy, around 1944. British soldiers work at desks as young Italian children watch them. Allied forces established administrative posts in liberated towns to restore order and provide aid to civilians. Naples, Italy, around 1943. A British medical officer examines a baby at an Allied clinic. Medical teams treated civilians alongside military personnel as they moved through Italy. A camp in Egypt, December 25, 1943. A Maori battalion soldier shares Christmas pork with mascot dog Paddy. New Zealand troops maintained their cultural traditions while serving thousands of miles from home. Sailors of the battleship George V received their daily rum ration, 1910s. The Royal Navy's tradition of issuing daily rum to sailors, known as the tot, continued until July 31, 1970. Santo Tomas Internment Camp, Philippines, 1945. 2 American prisoners of war sit outside after their liberation. Over 3,700 civilians were held here for 3 years under Japanese occupation. Manzanar Relocation Center, California, around 1943. Japanese-American women play softball behind barbed wire. Over 120,000 Japanese Americans were forced into these camps during the war, 2/3 of them U.S. citizens. Hayward, California, around 1942. A family of Japanese ancestry waits for an evacuation bus to an internment camp. They were given just days to sell their homes and businesses before removal. December 24, 1948. Holocaust survivor Joseph Gutmann reunites with Master Sergeant William Best, his liberator and adoptive father. Best found the young boy near death at a concentration camp and brought him to America. Leningrad, Victory Day, 1989. Young naval cadets salute war veteran Anatoly, a legless World War II hero. He received respect from the next generation of Soviet sailors along the Neva River. Vietnam, 1967. A Vietnamese woman with her children confronts an American soldier. Civilians often found themselves caught between opposing forces during the conflict that lasted from 1955 to 1975. Vietnam, around 1969. An American tunnel rat soldier is lowered into a Viet Cong tunnel complex. These soldiers volunteered for the dangerous job of searching underground networks, sometimes stretching for miles. Algerian War, 1958. French Foreign Legion troops came across a starving young donkey while on patrol. The conflict between France and Algerian independence fighters lasted from 1954 to 1962. Falklands War, 1982. Argentine soldiers pose with a penguin during the brief conflict. The war between Argentina and Britain lasted 74 days over disputed islands in the South Atlantic. A town in Brazil, 1989. An indigenous woman holds a machete to the face of a power company official during a protest. Indigenous groups oppose the construction of a dam that would flood their ancestral lands. Georgia, 1941. A teacher instructs a segregated class of black students at a poorly funded one-room school. The U.S. Supreme Court wouldn't declare school segregation unconstitutional until 1954. Johannesburg, South Africa, around 1989. A white woman and her child pose with their black domestic worker. Apartheid laws enforced racial separation until the system began dismantling in the early 1990s. Paris, 1905. European spectators watch indigenous people in an aquatic exhibit at a human zoo. These degrading displays were popular entertainment in Europe and America well into the 20th century. Clarksdale, Mississippi, around 1939. A black farmer discusses the price of his cotton with a buyer. Sharecropping systems often trapped farmers in debt, regardless of how much they produced. East London, early 1900s. Two children, known as Spitalfields nippers, make kindling wood for sale. Child labor was common in poor neighborhoods before reform laws took effect. Oklahoma, around 1938. A migrant mother sits with her crying child at the entrance of their roadside tent. Dust Bowl conditions forced hundreds of thousands to leave their farms in search of work. San Joaquin Valley, California, around 1938. Daughters of a migrant family stand on a roadside. The older girl had polio, a disease that paralyzed thousands of children before vaccines became available in the 1950s. Florida during the Great Depression. People sit on the side of a dirt road with nowhere to go. The economic collapse of 1929 left millions unemployed and homeless across America. Yugoslavia, 1942. 3 Croatian militia soldiers hold down a Serbian man accused of aiding resistance fighters. Over 700,000 Serbs, Jews, and Roma did not survive the German occupation of the Balkans between 1941 and 1945. West Virginia, 1938. A coal miner's wife and child face the camera. Mining families lived in company-owned towns where wages were often paid in scrip, usable only at company stores. Bell County, Kentucky. Mrs. Charlie Davis retrieves potatoes from storage beneath the kitchen table in their 2-room house near the Red Bird mine. The Davises grew a small garden for home use. Harlingen, Texas, 1939. The outdoor kitchen of migrant farm workers in a clearing. Families followed crop harvests across states, living in temporary camps with minimal facilities. Near Black River Falls, Wisconsin, around 1937. A farm worker and his wife pose with their grandchild. 3 generations often worked together to survive during the Depression era. California Highway, 1937. A man repairs a flat tire while his family looks on. Cross-country travel was unpredictable on roads that were often unpaved and poorly maintained. Center Market, Washington, D.C., around 1935. Shoppers browse produce at the busy marketplace. Despite the Depression, some urban markets continued operating, though prices had dropped dramatically. A woman places food into an electric refrigerator, 1930s. Electric refrigerators were becoming more common in middle-class homes, replacing ice boxes that required daily ice delivery. Port Arthur, Texas, around 1910. A couple poses with their motorcycle. Early motorcycles were affordable transportation before automobiles became widespread, popular with working-class families. Berlin, 1904. A scissor grinder performs on the street as onlookers watch. Street performers and tradesmen were common sights in European cities before modern retail shops dominated. Houston, Texas, 1904. 2 Michelin men ride a horse-drawn cart through the streets. The Michelin Tire Company created the mascot, called Bibendum, in 1898 to promote their products in creative ways. Sawmills, England, around the 1910s. Ratcatcher John Wheeldon poses with his trained foxes and dogs. Before modern pest control, specialized tradesmen were hired to control rat populations in towns and farms. Istanbul, Turkey, around 1960s. A man hired by a bar carries a drunk customer home in a basket. This was an actual service offered in some Turkish establishments to ensure patrons got home safely. Crimea, 1913. Grand Duchess Olga Romanov enjoys a swim. She was the oldest daughter of Tsar Nicholas II, lost along with her family in 1918 during the Russian Revolution. The Romanov sisters Olga, Tatiana, and Marie take a ride with their nanny in 1900. The girls were 5, 3, and 1 years old in this photo. Slovenia, around 1958. An elderly woman playfully teases a young boy with a sickle. Rural communities maintained close bonds across generations in small villages. Warren, Iowa, 1894. Mabel Eliza Owens was born this year, shown here holding her favorite doll. Photography was becoming more affordable, allowing working families to document their children's lives. Southeastern Ohio, or central West Virginia, between 1896 and 1912. 2 girls pose with a doll in a toy cart. One stands on a chair to appear taller for the photograph, a common trick in early portrait photography. South Pasadena, California, 1907. The wife and 3 daughters of Mayor Don Gates stand at the gate of their home. Well-off families could afford formal portraits and multiple outfits for their children. Near Tulare Lake, California, around 1900. A Native American woman works inside her tribe's camp. Tulare Lake was once the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi before agricultural diversion drained it by the 1930s. Sitka, Alaska, around 1900. Young Tlingit people pose in ceremonial attire. The Tlingit are indigenous to the Pacific Northwest coast, known for their sophisticated art and social structure. Netherlands, New Guinea, around 1958. Papuan women and children wash clothes by a river. The territory, now part of Indonesia, was under Dutch colonial administration until 1962. Netherlands, New Guinea, around 1950. Curious Papuan boys look into a film camera. Indigenous populations had limited exposure to Western technology in remote Pacific islands. Netherlands, around 1960. Dancers in traditional costumes perform a folk dance for a crowd during a festival. Dutch communities maintained regional traditions through annual celebrations. Nyssa, Oregon, around 1939. A boys' baseball team sits in the dugout during a game. Small-town baseball provided entertainment and community gathering during the Depression years. Quarter Circle U Ranch, Bighorn County, Montana, 1944. A cowboy settles in for the night during roundup. Ranch work remained largely unchanged from the 1800s, with long days spent on horseback. National Folk Festival, Washington, D.C., around 1936. A young child sits on a saddle. The festival celebrated American cultural traditions from different regions and ethnic groups. A work gang plants yams, 1884. This glass-negative photograph documents agricultural labor in the late 19th century before mechanization transformed farming. Donald Trump in 1980 with a model of Trump Tower. The 58-story Manhattan skyscraper opened in 1983, becoming one of New York City's most recognizable buildings. If you haven't subscribed yet, you might never see this channel again. So make sure you're subscribed and get more videos like this.